Is there no sound?
There's no sound.
And we can hear each other. This is not how it was intended. This isn't even. Oh.
I mean, it looks cool. Hey, there's my dumb face with much shorter hair.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the WNS9 Plus. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo, with our musicless intro. With me, we got Jim. We got Tyler. We have a special guest. Welcome back to the show from Fangraphs, Eric Longenhagen. Eric, welcome back, man.
What's up? What's up? How are you guys?
What up?
That's my Strohmeyer Swift celebration.
There we
back
go.
in the day, when he would have his dunk or two every night, and then he'd do the thing. He's just like, "Hey, you're a disappointing second overall pick, buddy."
The Q Rich.
Oh yeah, that's the classic too.
There
Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson head knocks.
Yeah,
all timers.
Yeah, let's turn us back to the old school basketball show. Let's forget baseball.
Pass.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I watched Dexter McLeon's kid throw bullpens 2 months ago, so everything. It's time is a flat circle, right?
Did you watch Tracy McGrady in the independent ball?
Oh no, but I did. I do remember when he pitched, for Sugarland when they were independent ball. Yeah, like I for sure watched the video of it, but I did not go see what T-Mac could do.
That is
Randy
definitely
Moss played basketball in Allentown, where I grew up for a little while. Like when he was like pissed at somebody, I forget. But yeah, he played for the Lehigh Valley Dogs in Allentown, semi-pro basketball briefly when he was like AWOL from the Raiders probably.
I think Tracy McGrady, like throwing like somewhat pro baseball at like upper 80s, is not talked about enough. Like that is
I agree with you.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's one of the. I think so many of these guys, like when they're doing multi-sport stuff, like I kind of have. If there's one thing I collected is like multi-sport guy stuff, and yeah, T-Mac like baseball memorabilia, if it exists, like that is definitely a thing I'm looking for. I have a Chris Winkie Dunedin Blue Jays bobblehead. I went to a game. Cool. I went to see them play Bradenton. This was last May. Here, isn't that crazy? This was not an old giveaway. This is a 2024 giveaway.
That's a good bobblehead too. That's better than the Paul Skeens bobblehead.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were like 20 people at the Dunedin Blue Jays game got these Chris Winkie bobbleheads. I'll never forget. There was Chris Winkie told a story in like Sports Illustrated where he had there was a girl at Florida State who came to his door with the trench coat on, and he opened his door, and then she opened the trench coat, and then he closed the door.
All right.
All right. On that note,
yeah.
How about them Buccos?
There's a segment.
What do you guys think about how the season's going to go? Are you guys excited? Are you guys nervous? What is the general feeling among like Pirates fans?
I think the general feeling is this off season did not go the way that we were hoping.
Yeah.
Just feel like they could have done so much more. And what they did do was just underwhelming. And when you have a pitcher like Paul Skeens for a limited time, you've got to surround him with some talent. You've got to get this team into the playoffs. And I don't think they did enough this offseason. We'll see. I hope they make it. I hope he can kind of carry them. But yeah, I don't think they did enough.
Yeah, it feels weird that like the major move was like the Spencer Horwitz trade, I guess, right? And while I think that he could have been good, like now I just don't know, especially when it's wrist stuff, right? Like even when he comes back, who knows how that'll look.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I guess it was like going back to the Nick York deal is like the other thing.
Yeah, Tommy Pham, Andrew Heaney, like just guys, you know.
Hey, this is supposed to be positive.
That's why we were talking about old school NBA.
Right.
I tried.
If you just dismiss the topic, then you can be positive.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think I don't know, man. I hope it goes better than that. Like I've been watching, obviously, like it's spring training time, and to prepare for this podcast, to prepare for working on Pirates prospect list. I've been watching like, all their spring games the last week or so. And it's just like, O'Neal Cruz's experiment in center field is like it's not like he's a duck in water out there. And, Henry Davis is letting, just clanging off of, pitches that aren't poorly located or like clanging off of his glove still. And so it's tough, but
It is.
But yeah, I think it is rough when there's just like, you look at the guys who were subtracted from the team last year, and it's an okay group. Like, even if some of the guys who they brought in the last, I don't know, let's say like, 8 or 9 months, including the group at last year's trade deadline, like York and Billy Cook, they're sort of like 1-for-1 replacements for guys like Connor Joe and stuff, and Rowdy Tellez, right, and Brian De La Cruz and stuff. And it feels like a bunch of lateral moves, and it's rough, but yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like. You imagine like what it's like to work for them, to like be a scout, and you're grinding on the road and you're like dropping a deuce in a Burger King bathroom for the second or third day in a row. And Colin Holderman is like sit 92. Bum me out.
It's a constant disappointed dad look. I'm just disappointed that we're not better here. Like, you have Paul Skeens. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I think I'm to the point where like all the guys who I expected to take steps forward last year who didn't, it's like I'm not expecting anything out of them ever again. And if they take a step forward, cool, I'll be happy. But it's like I'm not expecting anything from Brian Hayes. I'm not expecting anything from Henry Davis. I'm not expecting anything from Jack Sawinski. These guys who you would hope would be real difference makers, just not expecting anything from them anymore.
Eric, if I can ask you a quick question, does the Pirates' history of not being able to really produce hitters in general, does that tie into your rankings here? Or like when you compare it to the Rays, where it's like, this dude I've never heard of, but he's going to hit 300 this year. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like the Pirates acquired like a Billy Cook, who's 25 and just right through the minors. Like, he's still not going to hit. He's a Pirate now.
It is a tough thing because it feels sometimes like I'm scouting and other times like you're predicting. It would feel weird when like the White Sox and the Dodgers make a trade to all of a sudden downgrade your thoughts on the players who like the Dodgers sent them just because the uniform they put on is now different. I tend not to want to do that. There are definitely some like pieces or individual analysis, parts of the team lists, like the system overview where, I'll talk about player development. And there are some teams where scouting and player development they do go so hand in hand, where it seems like the players the team drafts, players the team is trading for, they're picked with preconceived notions about what the dev staff is going to do already in mind. The Pirates, I don't necessarily know that that's true. I will say that, like, as far as Connor Griffin is concerned, his swing has already been changed. So it does seem like there has been, some of my concerns about Connor Griffin in high school, who I really liked Connor Griffin, while acknowledging that like there's hit tool risk here. Some of the reason I thought that was true was not necessarily because like his contact rates were bad in high school or anything like that, but just because when you look at his spray chart over the course of like him on the showcase circuit, it looked like Drew Jones's spray chart where there's like no airborne pull contact. It is like all opposite field stuff. And they've already changed what he's doing mechanically. And so when I go back to his high school footage and go to, to the way he's looked so far this spring and the little bit of big league run he's gotten, and see that he's already been changed, his stance is not open anymore. It is now more closed. There's not like as big as of like a bat wrap happening. That to me is a positive sign that there was, unlike Drew Jones, and some of it was because Drew Jones got hurt a bunch of times, but the Diamondbacks did no proactive intervention with Drew Jones's swing. He was just sort of left to fail before they tried to do anything. And that's not what has happened here with Konnor Griffin. So I think at least as I'm working on this Pirates update, Konnor Griffin wasn't on my top 100 because I tend to think that we, like me and my peers who do this as our full-time jobs, will tend to just put the top draft picks in that space just because they were top draft picks. But I think with Griffin specifically, the change to his swing and the way he looks in center field, which was also this other unknown thing because he was a shortstop at his high school. He played right field with Team USA because, the other kids played the outfield, regularly. Those two things, I think I'm in now. I'm in more than I was because he didn't play after the draft. So there was nothing new to go off of. And now, I'm going to slide him next to Arjun Amala on my top 100 because those two guys have both shown they can make adjustments, and I feel better about them playing a premium position than I did the last time I updated it. But, back to the player development thing, I was on Rates and Barrels podcast with, Eno, used to be at Fangraphs, DVR, and had an interesting question to me about the Pirates because the Pirates bat speed, their the big league roster's bat speed measured by Baseball Savant last year, it was they're one of, if not the top org in terms of bat speed. Some of those guys who got big league run last year, like Nick York, Billy Cook's on the 40-man now. Nick York at one point had, just okay bat speed, and now it's above average to plus bat speed. And so I do sometimes wonder if they are good at training and improving specific things and not some other key things as far as developing hitters is concerned, or as far as picking hitters is concerned. But yeah, with the Pirates, they can crank out pitching. Paul Skeens didn't have a splinker in college and was they thought the best guy. I thought he was one of the, him and Cruz and Wyatt Langford were right there together for me. And then they made him better like that. So, I think it is so hard. Hitting a baseball is so hard. Hitting major league pitching is even harder. That a lot of the times we just don't know how these guys are going to do until they're forced to go and try to do it for 300-400 plate appearances plus. And then the really talented ones are the ones who are allowed to have time to make adjustments and try to improve. And even the guys who are amazing, Ronald Acuna went from a 24% strikeout guy to a 12% strikeout guy in 1 year. Just crazy, already one of the most talented guys in the league. And it took him 3, 4, 5 years before he had this godlike peak season. So, I think finding the right people on your dev side, it's such a black box, and teams really do not want to give up the people in their organization who are good at the development stuff. It's really difficult, but yeah, for sure. The Pirates' needs at the big league level have felt pretty clear, I think, to everyone for the last little while, especially as Jones and Skeens elevated to the level that, both of them have. And it took Mitch Keller a minute too. And those three guys, you put them with any other team's top three, and I think you can make a strong argument that you get in a playoff series with the Pirates, and you might be in trouble just because those three guys can win a game. But yeah, it is disappointing that I thought Ke'Bryan Hayes, everything seemed in place, and then for a little while it seemed like they were getting better. For him to slug 450 in 2023, that's great. If you're going to be an elite defensive third baseman, hit 270 and slug 450, you know, like that's great. I'll take that. But it's been tough. And, you know, even with O'Neill, like they nailed that trade with, you know, for O'Neill Cruz, picked the Dodgers pocket of all teams on that trade.
That's a rough year for them.
Hey, Jordan was that same deadline, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan, and I don't think Jordan ever played for them. And like, there's, you know, there are some conspiracy theorists, and the Dodgers invite this stuff because, you know, it was invited with Roki as well. But like that Dodgers whole international class was like, you know, a ton of Cuban guys. Pardon me. That was the class that was like, the Justice Department was investigating for like human trafficking because there were so many Cubans, Hector Oliveira and, you know, Arisbel Arrubarrueña and all these guys. And there are people who think that Jordan was like always ticketed for Houston, but because the Dodgers had already blown through their spending pool, that like they could do it and then like trade for, like make a deal after the fact. And like the fact that Jordan never really suited up for them in the DSL at all was like kind of like, why?
Gotcha.
You know, so that was a super weird, you know, those people from that international scouting staff, they're not really in baseball anymore. Some of them are like special advisors who don't show up on like a team's, you know, employee roster. They're sort of lurking in the background, but like the people who were part of that Dodgers international scouting group at the time, which is like from the previous regime before Andrew Friedman, but then Friedman got hired and those people were still in place and those deals were already in place and they honored them. They're not really in baseball anymore. So yeah, there's like definitely smoke around some of that stuff from that group. And then Carlos Santana is the other one. Casey Blake for Carlos Santana is the other like all-time terrible Dodgers trade.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you like Pirates player dev stuff? Like how much time have you guys spent in Bradenton? Like what's it like walking around? Their backfields I've only been on like once or twice the last, you know, because when I go see them, sometimes I'm in Dunedin, sometimes I'm in Clearwater, whatever. Like, does it seem like it's up to snuff? You walk around and there's like a bunch of tech and cool shit around or what?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I mean, they've got 4 fields, really 5 fields back there at Pirate City. And I mean, they're fully equipped with everything. There's guys on every field. They're looking at every pitch that's thrown. They're looking at every swing. It's all getting charted and tracked. Like it seems like they've got their analytics down. It's just a matter of, is it a scouting thing? Is it once you get to a certain level that it's a philosophy thing? I'm not really sure. But yeah, Jim, I mean, they all have everything you would think.
Just to piggyback on that, I think maybe they were a little late to the game on that too, just based on talking to some other people. Like they have it all now, but that's maybe 5 to 7 years ago. It seems like they're behind on some of that. They have it now, but maybe they didn't have it as early as they should have.
Yeah, I think them. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say you've seen them kind of make like. I feel like when Harrington came in, COVID happened, so he really couldn't make a whole lot of changes like right off the bat. And then he was like, all right, well, let's give these guys who are in place a little bit of run time to see what they have. And now you're seeing, you know, in year 6 of Ben Cherington, he finally went out there this offseason and you saw a lot of shaking up in the front office and in the player development department. They got a new guy running their drafts. They got a new guy running, like I said, player development. So they're doing stuff now that is different, but it's just like, you know, we're 6 years into this thing.
Yeah, there's always going to be a lag to like some of the Oakland is the one here. I guess it's not Oakland anymore, but the A's are the one here where like even last fall, some of the stuff, you know, that I've seen some of the tech that you see on other backfields was like just being installed last fall in Oakland's backfields. And yeah, like you can have the desire to implement all this stuff, but even it takes time to like buy the physical technology and then to install it. And then only then do you start producing data that you then have to analyze. And so there's always like a lag when some of these teams, you know, I once had someone tell me that Cleveland was 10 years ahead of the rest of baseball with some of the stuff, because like Kinatrax and like Hawkeye and stuff like that, understanding biomechanics in like a very granular way, they installed that stuff at Progressive Field like 10 years ago. And it's only data that now on the public side are we starting to have some, understanding of. And even then, like, we kind of don't, where these teams are mapping biomechanics in real time, and the pitchers are going into the dugout and they're being told like, hey, you're not like pronating enough over top of your changeup. And, then they go back out there for the next inning with that note and can like try to do it. I've seen, Pirates people, scouts and analysts at the field with some of the high tech stuff, like the Sony RSX camera. It's like a diet Edgertronic camera. It shoots at 1,000 frames per second rather than 2,000 frames. And you can like, go to the Fangraphs YouTube or whatever and see that like I have that camera. It's, got a 2.5-inch lens. Like I can walk into a big league stadium with it. Nobody says anything to me. Whereas an Edgertronic is like this enormous, you need like a roadie crew to help you set it up with the tripod and everything. And like, the Pirates have a person shooting video, high-speed video at backfield games when, nothing burger prospects are on the mound, and all that stuff is like very useful when you have an entire baseball analytics staff to help you break it down. But it does take time to understand it and then implement what you've gleaned from it in the draft room or, whatever it is. So, I think that I like Ben Harrington. I think that, it is a little long in the tooth to still be looking at like, the roster resource page and see, watch, I like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa fine. But also like, isn't Jared Triolo just like that basically? And, but yeah, I think I would be frustrated. This team, other than the pitching depth part of it, doesn't have the tenets of a sneaky good team. Like if you're gonna tell me like pick characteristics that will help a team punch above its weight during the course of a season and make them sneaky, it's like an impact bullpen, pitching depth, and like the ability to mix and match, play matchups within a game, like platoon basically, so that you can like, defensive versatility and platooning, and you don't have studs up and down the whole lineup. And I think the Pirates really only check one of those boxes. The Spencer Horwitz injury really does ding you. There are people who I think, who I like and respect, who really like Spencer Horwitz, who think that he had like looming breakout potential, that what he did in like 100-game sample last year with Toronto is like really who he is. And that would have been big for them, I think. And when you don't have enough guys to like deal with the inevitable injuries, then you're sort of left in this situation. But like, I do like Nick York, and, I think Billy Cook is something. York, I think, is like really weird and good in a way. Well, it's like go look at York's splits. York has crazy reverse splits. Like it's really strange. There's just something about his bat path that doesn't really interact well with left-handed pitching, but destroys righties. Like it's profoundly strange. And I thought that them moving him all over the place last year was a good thing. Boston really did not want to do that. They really left him at second base and then tried him a little bit in left field last year. And the Pirates were just like, go play center field and shortstop and let's see how that looks. And I thought he looked pretty good at third and both outfield corners. And I think like he's going to play 4 or 5 positions and be a really weird, like good matchup guy in the middle of the game, just because he can move around. And, I think like be kind of like what Chris Taylor was for the Dodgers, maybe not in terms of like peak, Chris Taylor was like an all-star player, but like the way they moved Chris Taylor around meant that like Max Muncy could platoon with, somebody else or whatever it was, like because of Taylor's versatility. And I think York will give them that. And I like that trade for them, even though, you know, Boston's really good at developing players, especially pitchers, like really, really good. And maybe Priester will be better for them than he was with the Pirates, but like just based on what they needed, I think that was a good deal. And doing work on the system here this week, like I like York. I think he's a good piece who you can win with, but it does feel bad that, you know, I like Brian Reynolds, you know, he's good. O'Neal Cruz is frustrating as hell sometimes, but like his talent is so unbelievable.
Right.
And I just want everybody to know, like, this is how it's always been. There were times when O'Neal would forget his jersey on a road, you know, a roadie here in Arizona. Like he'd show up at the field and like his jersey would be on the other side of the metro. And he'd be wearing someone else's jersey. And luckily you knew who he was because like
It's easy to tell. Yeah.
You can't miss him. He's the alien. But it was just one of those where it's just like, I don't know if this guy's going to max out, but he's going to be good. And Nick Gonzalez, we talked about Nick Gonzalez last year on the pod.
Oh yeah.
I was, you know, on the lower end, and they've tweaked him too. Let me see if I can screen share with you guys because I noticed like that if Gonzalez plays like he did over a whole season last year, that I'll have been light on him by 2 grades. Like he should have just been a 50. He should have just been like somewhere towards the back of the 100. And I'm going to pull up my synergy stuff here so you guys can kind of see his swing changed too from 2023 to 2024. Let me StreamYard. Okay, yeah, present. Let's do this. Can I share my screen? Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I want to share. What do I want to share? I'm just going to share my whole screen. All right. So forgive the redundancy that you see here initially. Let me know when it comes up. Yeah, it won't let me click it. I'm just gonna.
I think it's usually best to share like you share a
window?
window. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. There. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
All right. So this is Synergy. This is like a video software application that I'll use to help me break down players. So here's like Nick Gonzalez's, and I can like do splits and stuff like that and just sort of look. And so what I want to do is here in Nick Gonzalez's, actually, let's go back to 2023 to start. I'm going to show you Nick Gonzalez's swings and misses from 2023. And like, yeah, I can like break this down, like go back to the Cape or whatever I want to do. It's really sick. When the pandemic happened and Kevin Goldstein was the other prospect writer at Fangraphs, he suggested that since we couldn't travel, that we like pump budget for travel into this. And it's been amazing, like, you know, to help me, you know, break down as many players as I have to for the site. So here Nick's swings and misses from 2023. The blue, those are breaking balls. And so there's a ton of in-zone whiffs against breaking balls, like all these in the bottom third of the zone. The fact that he's swinging over as many of those as he was, like, this was part of why I was pretty skeptical. If we go to 2024, those go away. Like any other hitter, he's swinging over well-executed breaking balls below the zone because, like, those are well-executed breaking balls. But, and, like, I did, like, so this is his 2024 swing and miss locations. And you can see, like, it's just much, much better plate coverage there at the bottom of the zone. And, you know, short of
not as
like,
many. Yeah. So it's definitely not as like dense right there.
For sure. Yeah. And like short of going and breaking down like swing by swing, basically what was going on that was different. They changed a couple different things. They changed, you know, how big his leg kick was changed. The way his hands start changed. Other aspects were like more subtle. If you go, no one's going to hit Christopher Sanchez this year, but if you go back to like 2023, it's just much, much different. So I thought, again, like trying to deduce like what's going on. with Pirates player dev and how some of these changes are being made. It's not like when you ask people in player dev, hey, like, what's your secret? They're dying to tell you, because especially as far as developing hitters is concerned, it still is so few teams who are like clearly good at it, and it's a well-guarded secret. It is something that you try to, or at least I try to reverse engineer by like looking at what's gone on and what changes have been made and what are the results of those changes. And between the way Gonzalez played last year and the way Konnor Griffin looks this spring, and again, like I'll show you, we can just do this with Konnor Griffin too. High school Konnor Griffin compared to this spring Konnor Griffin, so that you can see the changes that they've made to him. I'll pull him up as well. Like these are at least signs that progress is being made, that like they're not just letting whatever happens happen. All right. Yeah. So here's Konnor Griffin's spray chart from high school. This is all of 2023. Do I have 2022 in here too? No, let me pull 2022 in as well. So it's like 300 pitches of sample. You can see all of this oppo contact. And like when I highlight over the balls in play, you can see the pitch locations as well. Some of these pull side guys, like these are breaking balls mostly that he's yoinked. But these fastballs, if I'm just looking at fastballs, you can see how oppo-oriented most of his contact is. Yeah. And to me, that's scary, especially in high school. Just from being wrong about players, I've learned that this is a little bit of a red flag, that when you start to have these high school players who can't pull the ball at all, what are they going to do against big league velocity? And so here's like Konnor Griffin playing with Team USA in Asia at the end of 2023. You can see like he's open, and then when he's loading, look at where the barrel of his bat is pointed toward us. We can see the cutout of his bat, from the center field camera. And yeah, it is like very late.
That ain't playing at 95.
Right. And this is part of what I was worried about, but like his tools are still so big. You can see he's late on that fastball as well. My rule of thumb for guys like this is, the grade I tend to give them is that 45 plus grade. It's, they're players who live just outside the top 100 to me until the tweak happens, or until they prove like, that they belong in that group. Like guys who have proven stuff up through AA or whatever, like I'm just going to value them with more certainty than, when like Termarr Johnson, when he was in high school, right? Like Termarr Johnson should not have been prospect number 25 or whatever he was coming out as a high schooler. And you can see all this oppo contact here, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like this is a turbocharged athlete. He's amazing. But, now here's Konnor now, and he's, I'll pause it to start, but he's not open anymore. And when we get to the apex of his swing, it's just not as big and deep and crazy of a load in his hands as it was in high school. And to me, for this guy to have done some of the stuff he's done on a big league field this spring, having not played after the draft last year, like not even until Bridge League and Instructs, which, he did a little bit of, but they didn't send this guy to Bradenton or anything last year. To me, his swing now looks more like Dylan Cruz's. And yeah, like, look, these are big league breaking balls he's facing as a teenager in his first spring training. Like, it's okay that he's swinging inside some of these. But this one here, this fly out against Brant Herter, this is a big leaguer. He misses his spot, sure. Like, they are trying to pitch him in. And these fastballs that he can get extended on, they're the ones that he's going to destroy. And we're going to see this year how he deals with fastballs that are, in on his hands more. That's really, really what it is going to determine just how big this is going to be. But I think this is very positive for me in terms of like, not just for Konnor Griffin, but for the org to be doing stuff like this, where we have tangible, results for Nick Gonzalez while he was healthy last year, and now for Konnor Griffin. I think that's, if we want a positive note for this show, as bummed out as everyone should be about Bob Nutting not wanting to spend again. This does seem like, hey, maybe stuff is changing here in a positive way.
Well, I made an agenda and I was like, why don't you have Konnor Griffin in your top 100? So that, I guess that
you're not,
right there.
I hear it from a lot of, why isn't Zaire Hope in your top 100? Why isn't Justice Bigby on your Tigers list? Like, it's just, baseball's hard. It's just way harder. Like, there are players going back during the course of me doing this that, I've either been right about in my head and not stuck to my guns publicly and felt bad. Like Miguel Vargas, I didn't like he's just so generic, but he was destroying the minors and, he sucks. And so I just have decided that like being wrong with my own opinions is just better than allowing the noise of the internet to like influence them at all. So last year, I definitely am better at remembering my misses than I am my hits. It takes me a while before I could go back and like, oh yeah, like I didn't, normally it's guys I don't like and who, I'll end up being right about relative to, I don't like Jordan Beck. I don't, there's just there tend to be warning signs that guys aren't good.
You know what, Eric? You know what it is? It's not your fault on the analysis. It's the developmental part. You were right.
There it is.
It was developmental. That's the reason that you were wrong. It's not your fault. That's what I go with.
Well, I guess that's possible. And that's part of where it's like, is the way we should do this. Like, Jackson Ferris is another one where like Jackson Ferris isn't in my top 100 because Jackson Ferris like sat 93 last year and his secondary pitches all had like, middling swing and miss results. And he's on everyone else's top 100, I think, at least based on like some of the comments in my chats on the site. And now Jackson Ferris is like sitting 96 this spring. Right. So I'm like, but yeah, like also I'm a dude. The players are dudes. We're all dudes. Hey. And sometimes like these are just young guys who are going to mess up because they're young, dumb, idiot dudes or grow as people, or the opposite is true, right? Where they grow as people in their early 20s and change or whatever it is. Or like, you just have no way of knowing like, that Kevin Maitan is going to take his $5 million bonus and go to Sizzler, So, but yeah, like for sure, I'll be wrong about players again, and we'll be right about players again, and Roman Anthony will suck or whatever it is.
No, don't say that. I like Roman Anthony.
And like Gavin Lux will be mid, and I'll have to live with Gavin Lux being mid and having the yips and all kinds of crazy stuff. Or Wander Franco has likes little girls.
We won't talk about Wander.
Like,
I think everybody was right. Everybody was right on the talent with Wander. I mean, he was a hell of a ball player.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Let's dive kind of into some of these Pirates prospects though. Listen, we already talked a lot about Konnor Griffin, the guy you have him 22nd in your top 100, 23rd, sorry. But someone who Pirates fans are extremely excited about, especially after seeing like what Paul Skeens did coming up last year. I think it's almost putting him in a bad spot because it's like we saw what Paul Skeens and Jared Jones did like right off the bat last year. And it's like, oh, well, Bubba Chandler's going to do that too. But I guess talk a little bit about Chandler because, I mean, two-way athlete. I feel like just from me watching him, once it was like, all right, I'm a pitcher, that's when he like really started just getting really good at pitching. And this past year in particular, just the command took a step forward. And the stuff is incredible. So like, what should we temper our expectations on Bubba Chandler a little bit, or are we okay to just be like crazy about him?
I think the only thing people should remember is pitchers break, and sometimes when they break, it never comes back. And there's a certain amount of attrition that happens just to pitchers because they're pitchers, and then that might apply to Bubba Chandler too. But yeah, I mean, you see this with the Braves too. Like the Braves will take Michael Harris, who's a two-way high school prospect, and then once he's focusing on one thing, he explodes. And yeah, with Bubba Chandler, it wasn't just like doing both things. It was like playing multiple sports in high school. And I love players like this. And Bubba's changeup really ascended, I thought, last year. And I think you put on, the tape of him playing this spring, and he's hammering his slider like they're trying to make his slider better. But yeah, like, with pitching, I think especially over the long haul, you bet on bodies, you bet on athletes, and you bet on like aptitude and competitiveness and all that other stuff. And I think this guy's got all that. It's pretty rare for me to want to absolutely stuff a pitcher inside my top, 25, 30 guys because of what I just said. Like, pitchers, they're for every Paul Skeens, there's a Mackenzie Gore where it's rocky, even if it turns out okay. For every Paul Skeens, there are 5, AJ Pucks and Alex Reyes's, where, there's injury after injury or whatever it is. And so with Bubba, I just think it's like, I mean, you see him bumping 99 and clearly like in a big league spring training game, they're just like, go work on your slider, and he's doing it. And I think there will probably be an adjustment period. I think, if I'm looking at the data and like trying to pick nits, or someone was playing with my spreadsheet, looking at the Yankees instead of the Pirates, guys. In terms of like Bubba's stuff, I just have fastballs up right now. Yeah, like it's great. It's great. Like I really wouldn't.
It's good.
Yeah. The action on his fastball is like not. He doesn't have like Clayton Kershaw's fastball movement or anything like that. But if you're gonna sit 97, like it's fine. Sandy Alcantara's fastball doesn't have like perfect shape either. Like, he's fine. So
he's fine.
Yeah,
He's only won a Cy Young, yeah.
He's only won a Cy Young. But yeah, I think like I expect Bubba to be an impact player. I think on a great team, he's your 2 or your 3. And just, his size and athleticism, it's going to be a fun half decade with him, Jones, Skeens, Barco's on the way. It wouldn't surprise me if Hunter Barco's a top 100 prospect a year from now. Just needs to do more than, throw 60 innings, but like he's ripping 96 past Marcell Ozuna too.
Yeah.
So it's a great group. There's going to be some amount of attrition because like that's just the nature of this stuff. You have to have enough depth to lose Tyler Glasnow and, still win a World Series and like, have a miracle Walker Buehler appearance and all this. Like it takes that from even the best, deepest team. But like he's a stud. It's going to be great.
So, and talk about Bubba, going back to the whole developing players, I know there's been a lag, but I feel like that's something the Pirates have been doing very well in is developing pitchers, right? Talk about the Skeens, the Jones, now we're talking about Bubba Chandler. And like I feel like there's next tier, right? There's the Ashcraft, there's the Thomas Harringtons, getting some love. You talk about Barco might come up there. And I feel like there's a lot of split, between Harrington and Ashcraft, like who's next, whatnot. And obviously you have Ashcraft in the top 100. Tell us a little bit about the two of them, and why Ashcraft above, because there's certainly some risk, I feel like, with with Ashcraft, but he has the stuff. Harrington, I think, less riskier, but not as good stuff. So yeah, maybe tell us a little bit of the difference there and why Ashcraft in the top 100 and Harrington's left out.
Yeah. I have a 45 on Thomas Harrington. I think you nailed it. Like Braxton Ashcraft stuff is nastier. He's sitting 96. This is one of those guys where the shape and movement of his fastball is kind of a problem. Like his fastball is going to play down. Hopefully he will over time be able to accentuate the amount of sink so that it is like turbo sinker, staying off barrels, generating a ton of ground balls. But just from, again, body, athlete, Ashcraft checks those boxes and is prototypical power pitcher in those ways and just has that monster slider. Harrington, and I like Thomas Harrington. Thomas Harrington to me is more like a Jose Urquidy type guy where he's in your rotation towards the back all year. He eats innings. He's super consistent. He has great command. And his stuff is just not nasty enough for me to be windmill slam you on my top 100. There are way more than 100 good prospects in baseball. And I think Thomas Harrington's good. He's in that tier of player, he's the pitching version of Nick York, where this is a guy that you win with over the course of the regular season, but aren't going to win because of in the playoffs or in a do or die game. And, again, just to support some of that with data, Thomas Harrington's sitting 92.5, and it's below the big league average. The movement on his fastball is roughly average. It's generating a slightly below average miss. His changeup is generating slightly above average miss. Sliders average. And then obviously all the strikes, super efficient, pound the zone, inning eating guy, just more of a lower impact 4 or 5 starter on a good team who, when you get to the playoffs, is he in your playoff rotation? Probably not.
Yeah, I look at if we're comparing the two, right? Because I feel like that is kind of the next tier of starters in this group is Ashcraft and Harrington. Ashcraft definitely the higher upside. Ashcraft can go out there and maybe win you a ball game in the postseason with the stuff that he has, but Ashcraft's floor seems to be significantly lower, especially with the injuries. And that was my next question: how much of the injuries, what is that really concerning at this point? Because it's not Braxton Ashcraft was 2018 draft pick. Been in the system for a long time. I don't think he's pitched over 80 innings in a year ever. How much does that play into just, this guy looks good, but he just can't stay on the mound.
Yeah, I think there are a couple different ways to look at it. There's the way where the stuff is always good when they're healthy way, and you are assuming pitchers are generally getting hurt. And there are people who would tell you, and I think you can look at some of the way teams roster build this way. I think the Dodgers are a good example where, Roki Sasaki, for $6 million, you don't have to be very good to be worth $6 million. But the Dodgers clearly build a roster where, they're given Blake Trinan, who was non-tendered by the A's, $12 million because some of it is because they can, and some of it is because they just care that his stuff is really good. And so I think there's an element of that for me where so many pitchers are getting hurt all the time that applying injury risk to the entire pitching population rather than just the ones who have been hurt seems to make sense. Injury risk would seem to be a factor in every pitcher's profile all the time. It is when guys' stuff has taken a dip post-injury where I am starting to adjust the way I'm valuing that player. With hitters, I don't know, Chase DeLauder is the guy who I have to make a decision on because he keeps getting hurt over and over and over again. Joel Embiid's feet are bad. So, there are different ways to look at it. With Ashcraft, you're right. Like, I think it's 94 innings. His scouting report is already done. But what is it? How many innings is it? But
you're about right with 90-ish.
73 innings.
I think he threw. Did he throw
73? And that's the most
right.
he's ever thrown in a season.
Yeah. So for sure, that is if that scares you, I totally understand. This part of the reason I felt comfortable having him on my 100 is because I knew that he showed up at camp before the 100 ran with all of the velocity that he had before he was shut down last year. Just as I'm sitting and doing work on it and checking on really 300 players, I had learned that he came to camp and was sitting 96 to 98 in the bullpens, getting tuned up. And I felt okay, he's there. He's on the 40. He's going to be in the big leagues. The proximity part of it is there. And the velocity is there. The slider, I feel very strongly, is there. I know we've seen a couple of changeups this spring before he was reassigned. And those I thought looked pretty good too. So, but yeah, for me, I will probably go, obviously Bubba, Ashcraft, and then Barco because of his upside, and then Harrington. That is the way, as we're sitting here, my mix looks for the top of the system in terms of the pitchers. And then the Muth, Matoma, the other guys who Sterling, Carlson Reed, I really like. The guys who I think have upside but are further away. Mm-hmm. And Mike Burrows, I guess, is in this mix too. He's another one where it's is he really going to start? Probably this year, I would assume Mike Burrows will continue to start, certainly in the minors to begin the season. And then, he'll be up as a starter and probably lose rookie eligibility this year. Burrows is another one where the injuries are definitely part of the way you think about Mike Burrows. But when he's healthy, his stuff is fine. It's not it wasn't last year it was peak Burrows, where we were seeing 96, 97 pretty consistently from him. It's more 94. And that's been the case again for him this spring. I think again, with Mike Burrows, some of the way you want to frame thinking about these guys is on a damn good team, what role does this guy play? And Mike Burrows, I think it's good long reliever, come in the middle of the game, give you 6 outs because the changeup is platoon neutral and throw your curveball for first pitch strike so your fastball doesn't get hammered like it did last year in the minors. That's still a good player. And he's there, the proximity part of it is there. But yeah, I think for me, Barco, where the most recent injury was not an arm, and the velocity, Barco's trajectory has been so strange because in high school, Barco was a dude, and it was more low to mid 90s, really good changeup. There aren't a whole lot of starters whose deliveries look like this, but the command piece of it is there. Now, we're 6 years past that for Hunter Barco. His velocity that's at Florida, they are not good. For all the resources the University of Florida baseball team has, they are not good at developing pitchers. Brandon Sproat got better after he left. Dane Dunning got better after he left. You've got their guys who are pitching on Tuesday nights and in their bullpen who go to pro ball and end up starting. Hunter Barco's velo is back and then some. And that changeup is still good. It's really a splitter. And it's obviously
so pretty, though.
I know.
It's so darn pretty.
So with Barco, it's just show that you can do it over a starter's, load of innings and against upper level guys. And it feels to me he's got mid rotation upside as well. And I know he's 24 and it's not sexy when it's like, everyone is looking for the 19-year-old, backfield guy or whatever. But realistically, those players are 4 or 5 years away. That's what we've learned from people like Hunter Barco is you can get excited as you want about them when they're carving at area code games, but they're 5+ years away from being on your TV.
Right. Let's talk about Termarr Johnson a little bit. I haven't really mentioned him much so far tonight. Definitely taking a hit in terms of his, status, right? He's dropping out. He's dropped out of your top 100. He's dropped out of, I think, Baseball America's top 100. So he's definitely falling there. But I still think he's still a pretty good ball player. He's still really young, and I think he still has a lot of room to grow. And there's some things to like. There's just some things to not like too. But I guess is this kind of like the put up or shut up year almost for Termarr, where he should be in Double-A, should be like a second go at it as well. He got some time there last year. Is this kind of like I said, is this the year where it's all right, Termarr, it's time for you to show us what made you the number 4 or 5 overall pick?
I don't know that I worry Termarr is going to be like a bust, but it is harder to see him making like a high-end impact. I think some of the problems are the platoon split piece of it is going to make it difficult for him to be a true everyday player. And when all you do is play second base, he can't play shortstop at the big leagues. When all you do is play second base, if you're not really an everyday player, then it's tough to roster you. And so that's where some of these guys are on thin ice who can only play second base. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're good.
The other thing about Termarr, and Termarr I watched for 6 weeks in the Fall League and with Team USA before they left for Premier 12. His hands are still in the right place a lot of the time. His swings are still so nice. There's oppo feel when the pitches are on the outer third. He's got that big pull side loft on those pitches down and in. It's not bad. It's just that there's not what his swing does do is leave him super vulnerable. I can show you guys this stuff too. It just leaves him super vulnerable to stuff at the top of the zone. So here are Termarr's swings and misses from last year.
Okay.
All these fastballs at the top third of the zone, guess what right-handed pitchers in the big leagues have? Fastballs that finish up here. And so conversely, here are his balls in play, and notice that there's an enormous hole up here, basically. It's very scant in this part of the zone, and a lot of the ones he's making contact with up here are breaking balls and changeups. But some of this stuff, hammering fastballs to the opposite field like this, that's good. And, pulling these hanging breaking balls like you're supposed to, that's good. And it's not a terrible thing, that this is what it looks like. It's just that once you start to really dive into some of the other stuff, his data, some of the raw power is underwhelming, and some of the contact rate stuff is also towards the bottom of the second base big league population. So for example, in doing work on Termarr, I was looking at the other big league second baseman on the Fangraphs leaderboard. You just go in and see who else is making contact at a 70% clip, which is what Termarr did in 2024. And granted, he's a 20-year-old who was at high A and then got a cup of coffee at Double-A. So you want to adjust a little bit for that. But of the big league second basemen who are successful with a roughly 70% contact rate, it's pretty scarce. Brandon Lau is a great example of a guy who is good and looks a lot like Termarr. There's elevated strikeouts. There are some issues for Brandon Lau swinging and missing, but he's been getting to enough power to be a good big league second baseman for the last half decade or so. He just has like much more raw power than Termarr does. This is the thing that I have been most wrong about, like relative to my old reports on Termarr, is like how much power is actually here. And the answer is like 45 grade power right now. And on a guy built like, Elly De La Cruz when he's 20, you can project and say, well, over time, this guy's body is going to mature in such a way that there will be more. And when Termarr is like 5'9" and kind of maxed out already, it's much more difficult to just comfortably forecast that. So that's the situation that we're in now, where I have a 45 on Termarr, where I think, when we look at the group of big league second basemen at the end of his pre-free agency years, that he will be in like that 20 to 30 range. And that's not bad. So here are some of Termarr's stats just for reference. 75% in zone contact. That's like a full standard deviation worse than the big league average. 70% contact overall. That's like half a standard deviation worse, like a 45. Obviously, like he's very patient. His selectivity, I think, is real. He's got plus plate discipline. And then from like a hard hit rate and max exit velocity perspective, 34% hard hit rate. The big league average is like just shy of 39%. Max exit velo was 108.5 last year in the air and 110 on the ground. Those are a little shy of average. 110 overall, is the big league average. 108, in the air for Termarr is like a little south of that. So like that's kind of what we're looking at. And some of his expected stats, StatCasty type stuff is also like, this guy's going to hit 220 with a 110 ISO. And, so that stuff is pretty underwhelming. I really like Termarr, like the kid. He seemed visibly frustrated to me in the fall league a lot of the time because I think what he's trying to do is really lean on his patience and plate discipline and try to make the on-base percentage a big, big part of what he's doing. He's just at the mercy of umpires a lot of the time. And like I cut together his video from the fall league this morning and published it on our YouTube channel. And you can see some of that, like he's drawing with umpires and stuff. And, but we'll see how it goes this year at AA. I really want to see just more juice. Like if he's going to swing and miss as much as he has, it can be okay. You can go to the big league leaderboard and sort by contact rate to find the guys in the big leagues who like swing and miss the most. And some of them are like Aaron Judge and you know what I mean? But like when
they
you
hit the ball a good bit harder.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit, Elly De La Cruz has a 68% contact rate, but when you hit the piss out of it like that, it's okay. And so like, that's what I'm looking for from Termarr is like, is there a way for you to hit it harder, even though this is how you're built? As you mature, like, is there a way for you to sting it like Teoscar Hernandez? Again, like Teoscar Hernandez, 68% contact rate, but like he's got real set of pythons on him, and so it's okay. Now, like again, Teoscar is a good example of Houston said, "Hey, see ya. We're gonna keep Derek Fisher," and it took Teoscar till he was 25 to break out. Really, till he was 27 when the on base part of it was not so bad for Teoscar. That he's become like an impact player in his late 20s, early 30s, and so sometimes like. You just don't really learn how to take care of your body in a way that allows you to hit 30 bombs until you're 25, 26. And so, my fingers are crossed that that's what happens for Termarr. But as things sit right now, like I've got him as more of a low end second baseman.
Who can I get excited about?
Well, I actually think like
other than pitchers.
There are the fun thing about the system as far as hitters is concerned is there are like a bunch of freaky, weird guys who they're risky, and trying to sift through which of these guys is actually going to hit enough to be good is like very difficult. It's a lot of fun. That's like Tony Blanco Jr. Like Tony Blanco Jr., let's do this. So Tony Blanco Jr. from like if I change the spreadsheet I'm looking at to include every player in baseball and just sort the entirety of pro baseball by like hard hit rate and some of these like power metrics, measurable power metrics. Okay. I'm just going to sort my entire spreadsheet by hard hit rate right now. It's going to take a second because it's an enormous spreadsheet. Okay. So number one in all of pro baseball last year, hard hit rate, 63%, is a guy named Dario Reynoso in the Giants system. He's striking out like 40% of the time. If you go find video of him swinging, it is really incredible how hard he swings, but he doesn't really make contact. Number two is Aaron Judge. Okay. Number three is Shohei Ohtani. No surprises. Juan Soto is up here. Spencer Jones is up here. There are other prospects people probably know named Bryce Eldridge and Xavier Isaac who are up here. Fernando Tatis is up here. Giancarlo Stanton is up here. And if you're looking for guys who are in, the lower minors, the only one other than Reynoso who's up in this stratosphere is Tony Blanco Jr., who has a 47% hard hit rate, which is ridiculous for his age. 117 max, which if I sort by max exit velocity, it goes O'Neal Cruz, Giancarlo Stanton, Shohei Ohtani, William Contreras, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Aaron Judge, Tony Blanco Jr.
Okay, that's wild.
That's incredible.
That's perspective.
Yeah.
So I do not know what this guy is going to be. He's got a 63% contact rate. There really aren't big leaguers who have contact rates that low and also play regularly. Here's another one. I wrote my Yankees list. They have a prospect named Roderick Arias. He had a 63% contact rate. And I put like the equivalent of like a second round grade on him. And like Yankees fans hate me now. Eric Raiselman's bumping 99 in big league spring training games, but they want Roderick Arias ranked ahead of him. There aren't, big leaguers who have a 63% contact rate. Like there just aren't. And so that's where Tony Blanco Jr. is at, where he's got striking out 28% of the time on the complex. He's a 6'7" teenager. He's a freak. Like whether or not he's even in control of his limbs just yet, I don't know. But I know he's fascinating, and I'm really interested to see how he develops. And I know, Jhonny Severino is really interesting, and Estuar Suero is really interesting. Like these are guys where, they're the opposite of Thomas Harrington, where the variance on Thomas Harrington is so narrow. Like he's either a fifth starter or a fourth starter, and that's sort of it. Whereas these guys might strike out that they don't get out of AA, or they might be O'Neal Cruz. And
big variance. Yeah.
Right. Enormous variance. And there are so many guys in the Pirate system like this, where if I, again, I'm just rattling names off, Esmerlyn Valdez is like this.
Okay. I would say Esmerlyn Valdez, Yordani De Los Santos. I feel like all of these guys are kind of like Severino. You just named them all, like Severino, De Los Santos, Valdez, like a bunch of guys who it's tough to make contact. It's tough to make contact, but when they do, ball goes far.
Omar Alfonso is another one.
Yeah.
Omar Alfonso has big lefty power for a catcher his age. If Omar Alfonso he's what, 21, 22? If he were at an SEC school right now, everyone would know that guy's name. You have a 53% hard hit rate in pro ball as a left-handed hitting catcher. If you're in college, you know who that guy is. But yeah, like the truth is, like, you know, there's once you start leveling up, I've done this before, like compare it to going from playing on all pro to on all Madden. There's an adjustment period, and some of us can't do it. Like some of us are too old now to like do that anymore, and maybe their little cousins wipe the floor with them now. But
not me, by the way.
God bless you. I still got to fire up. My GameCube died. I can wreck people with Sean Taylor and Ed Reed on Madden 05, but not anymore. Like now it's too much for me. Like all these kids playing, you know, Minecraft, like they kick my ass. But yeah, like once you get to AA and above, each level beyond there, the fastball velocity different. It's a different gear. Guys can execute breaking balls. They're at AA or above for a reason now, not just because they got money or whatever. Like they're grown men. They're 26. They know how to handle their business day to day. There's a reason that they're there, and they know to use that reason. And whether it's just like I have a good slider and my arm slot is down here or whatever it is, every single one of those guys has something like that at AA and above. And this whole group that's in like the lower minors of this system, I think it's fun, like, because this is where the O'Neal Cruzes come from. This is where the Fernando Tatises come from, is like these freak guys who have to, at some point, will have to make an adjustment and figure out how to do it. They often start as striking out at, 25% clip at the complex. And, this 6'7" kid at Fresno State's striking out a lot and whatever it is. Like, Fernando Tatis was a White Sox prospect. He was swinging and missing a ton and chasing everything on the backfields here in Arizona, and just was a 6'3", it was like, is that Larry Fitzgerald over there with the dreads on? No, that's Fernando Tatis's kid, who went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts today, but, hit the parking lot during BP. And then, 2 years later, it's the best trade in the history of baseball. It's James Shields for Fernando Tatis. Jeff Bagwell trade probably has an argument. There are a bunch of good ones, but
yeah, the Tatis trade was pretty good though. Yeah.
I think my suggestion is for the people who are watching this, who obviously love the Pirates, is follow. I saw Anthony Murphy's comment pop up on my screen. Follow that guy's YouTube channel. He cuts up video of these guys in the lower minors in a nice. I'm a subscriber to Murphy's YouTube channel, and
he's great. He's great. I'm gonna be sitting next to him at the Spring Breakout Game on Friday. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Follow Mark Roche, Roche. He's a guy who works for the Pirates, who all those complex level games just get streamed on YouTube.
Yep.
That's how I start most of my mornings. Every morning this week, I've started with coffee and Pirates complex level games, just working on running up their players.
True sicko behavior. Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's my job.
It's your job.
It's like,
if there's anyone watching this who is waking up to Pirates complex games, then
they're getting paid.
I gotta give them something. I gotta give them some credit.
Take my 4th inning poop from the coffee.
So speaking of the Spring Breakout Game, so we've talked about a lot. Talked about some under the radar guys. Who games against the Phillies? Who should we be looking at? Who maybe we haven't been able to see on TV up to this point? At least not a lot of. Like, who are you most excited to really get your eyes on?
Is David Matoma on the roster?
He is.
I want to talk about him anyway. So
yeah,
him. Tell us about David Matoma, because
I mean,
very intriguing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. Whatever baseball in Africa is going to be a thing. I think the Dodgers just signed a 6'7" kid named Joseph Dang out of Africa. David Matoma was training at their illegal complex in Uganda. The Dodgers had an academy in Uganda that Major League Baseball shut down because you can't like have a facility where the players aren't yours, but you run it. Like it's okay kind of in the Dominican because a lot of the players there are your employees, even if the ones who haven't signed yet, who are going to sign with you are working out there. Like, I don't know. It's Major League Baseball shut down this facility in Uganda that the Dodgers were running, and Matoma was working out there. Pirates have a scout named Tom Gillespie who's been scouting. Africa's like been part of his coverage for over a decade, developed a relationship with the player, and they signed him. And, you know, I first learned of him in 2023 because he was the hardest throwing guy in the 2023 DSL. It was him and a Dodgers kid named Reynaldo Yeen were like the two hardest throwing players in the DSL. And you know, he came stateside last year and was sitting 95, 98, touching 100. He was 18. To me, the upside is like, I think who I compared him to last year was Yordano Ventura. Like, he's a smaller guy. It is unbelievable how much velocity there is with very little effort. He just has a beautiful delivery and athletic. Like, it's just perfect. Like, you can't throw harder than this guy does at this size and have it look so effortless. I still think he's got room for strength, which doesn't mean I think he'll throw harder, but I think it means that as his innings load increases, that he'll be able to keep throwing this hard. I'm really excited about him. I think, you know, the slider quality needs to improve. And that, if I'm going to sit and watch the spring breakout game, is like, is there a plus secondary pitch here all of a sudden? That's what I want to see happen. But in terms of just like, you know, obviously like Gifton Gope was a thing for a little bit and is still around, like coaching. He's a base coach for, I think, the Diamondbacks now. But you want to plant your flag in a country, on a whole continent, the way the Dodgers have in Japan. Doing so in Africa now would be a huge thing. Like if you can be, not just from a talent pipeline standpoint, although I think that would be true as well. Baseball is growing in Australia. Baseball is growing in Africa. To make those places not just, entire continents where players there know about the Pirates because you have a big leaguer who is from there, in the same way that like, I know the Grizzlies have a little Japanese kid on their team now, but they had like a wing guy too, who like in the list of most popular NBA jersey sales worldwide, he was on there, even though he was like a G League, two-way contract guy. And to have that kind of revenue stream when you're the Pirates, because people in Africa want to buy a Pirates hat or a Pirates jersey or whatever it is, TV ad revenue, and like, who knows, it would be such a big deal, much bigger deal for the Pirates than for a team like the Dodgers, where they can go into the couch cushions of the clubhouse and pay, Blake Treinen $12 million because he was just non-tendered from being hurt too much, and then change his slider. So David Matoma, there is so much resting on the shoulders of that particular player, in my opinion, because the impact he could have on the org goes way beyond the field. And so that is the one guy where, like, the spring breakout game, I'll be out. Like, I don't know if I'll sit and watch that one because I mean I probably will after the fact because I'll be out at my own here in Arizona, but he's the guy where I'd be so excited just to see what the secondary stuff looks like.
All right.
So straight from Eric Longenhagen, David Matoma, he's just perfect.
The organization is riding on his shoulders.
The future.
Which he looked like he bulked up some this offseason as well, to put that out there.
That's the new show title.
Yeah. I haven't laid eyes on him at all this spring. I've got nothing. No one has told me anything. Obviously, and I pulled up the roster and it's like Blanco's on there. Wyatt Sanford, what Wyatt Sanford looks like strength-wise, I'd be very interested to see as well because he does everything else. Wyatt Sanford was maybe the best defensive player in the entire 2024 draft class. Okay bat to ball feel. And can you get strong and have power too? Then great. So that would be a big one. It's so funny that Wilkin Ramos is on this. Wilkin Ramos, who was an interesting name to know in the A's system long ago when he was just a projectable teenage pitcher and now is like a funky low slot guy. He's just like the first name on the roster who I'm going to send to my scout friends here in Arizona, where it's just like, look at Wilkin Ramos is on the Pirates breakout roster at age 24 or whatever he is.
Yeah.
But, he's just a funky, fun, maybe up, down, sidearm reliever, but it's just awesome to see his name on here. And then Omar Alfonso, who I put on my picks to click, any of those catchers on the roster, all three of those guys, Omar Alfonso, Axiel Plaz, and Richard Ramirez, they all have legit power. And it's just about how much are any of them going to hit. I think Richard Ramirez, of those freaky names who we mentioned earlier, Esmerlyn Valdez and I think Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Those are the two guys where the contact rates are in kind of a playable range. It's not great. We're still below 70%, but it's not in the this can't work range like Tony Blanco's is if it stays that way. Matt Gorski's got a 63% contact rate. He's interesting too, but it's not going to work if this is how much contact there is. So those are the names. I think that'll be fun. And I think the Phillies group will be a super fun test. The 222 rivalry. The Phillies group does not include Andrew Painter because he is being deployed on a delay so that he can pitch in the playoffs if they need him to. The anti-Yuri Perez thing. But Moises Chase, Phillies prospect who they got from Baltimore in the Gregory Santos or Sir Anthony Dominguez trades last year at the deadline, that guy's got a Bryce Miller, maybe, Roy Oswalt kind of thing going on with his fastball where it's super duper uphill and crazy. That'll be interesting to see the Pirates guys try to deal with. That's if there's one name on the Phillies breakout roster folks should watch, it's Moises Chase, I think. Him airing it out at 97 for an inning where no one's going to touch his fastball. It would be a lot of fun.
Except Tony Blanco Jr. He'll run into one. Who knows?
Who knows what's going to happen with that guy? That's one where tonight when we get off, I'm going to go cook dinner and then sit and I'll be up probably for another 5 hours, just sitting and working, trying to get the list done tomorrow so it'll run Friday and I can just have the weekend to go breakout games.
Nice. So the Pirates list coming out on Fangraphs, like you mentioned, soon. So a little introduction to it. I guess one last question, at least from me. One bold prediction from Pirates prospects this year. From Eric himself.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm just looking at my names now to see. I'll say that Wyatt Sanford ends up on top 100 lists next year.
Ooh,
that's a good one.
I like that one a lot because when the when they drafted him, I was not a big fan of that pick. That was the pick that I was like, glove first guy, can't hit. But if the hitting comes around and he's that good defensively, yeah, there's something there.
I went back and did work today on him, even though, like, I don't know why it is that some of these teams, Pirates included, are just like, hey, after you sign, you're not going to do anything. It's just like, get these kids in a fucking game.
Yeah.
But I went back and did work on all the, again, the synergy stuff and the barrel feel, moving it around with lift. Like some of these guys, like Anthony Volpe is a good example where if you are getting on top of fastballs, belt high fastballs with airborne lift, you're kind of freaky. Like there aren't a ton of guys who can do that. Juan Soto was like the king of this, the all-time king of this, obviously. And you're giving up other stuff when your swing is geared to do this sort of thing. But Sanford's kind of got that going on for him. And if he can be strong, the Pirates love guys like this. Like Jack Brannigan's another one where it's like kind of extreme. 26 degrees of launch is like maybe too much. But, the Pirates really like guys like this. And I think the teams, I'll just evoke the Dodgers again. Like the Dodgers take players who do a bunch of other stuff, except they're not strong yet. And then they put them in a pro strength and conditioning program and like give them the one thing that they don't have. And that's really all I think Wyatt Sanford needs is like, if you can be strong, then everything else is kind of there. The foundation for all the other stuff is there. And I think the power portion is going to sing right away. Because it's not one of those guys where it's like, yeah, he's got power, but he strikes out a ton. It's you had like an 82% contact rate or whatever it was. It was definitely north of 80% for Sanford. And I'm watching you hit, and I think it's pretty good. And if you can be strong too, like the power is going to be there right away because the contact part is already there. And the defense part of it is for sure there. I had Sanford's 31st on my draft board last year. $2.5 million they gave him, which is like back in the first round. So like right in there. And yeah, it's just about like get strong, dude. And, I'll see you hopefully in Greensboro by the end of the year. And if you perform well for like a month or so there, it'll make everybody feel really good that you can actually do this. And yeah, that's the type of guy who's like towards the back of my 100 is that good glove middle infielder who's, reached the mid-minders and kind of proven it.
I like it.
All right.
I would love to be wrong about Wyatt Sanford. I would love it. Because I don't think I'm wrong about this guy. But maybe I am.
Yeah. I don't know. Like you're going to find out, but yeah.
Cool.
For those listening to the podcast, I flashed up Mitch Jebb there. I'm a known I'm not a Mitch Jebb enjoyer, I guess is how the kids say.
Yeah. And it sucks because that's the type of when you're bucketing all those college hitters from the last couple of drafts and you're like, let's just take some bat to ball guy and make him strong. The Rays end up with Chandler Simpson. Yeah. The Red Sox end up with Christian Campbell, and you guys get Mitch Jebb.
I have Chandler Simpson's Fangraphs page up right now.
Isn't it funny? His triple slash line is the same right now. It's just 286, 286, 286.
With a 4.8% strikeout rate. It's just unreal.
Yeah, he's.
I love this dude.
I hope he breaks camp. I hope he breaks camp.
That's wild. That is wild.
Well, you guys have any other questions or anything?
No, thanks for all the information, Eric. I'm not sure if Jim has any more.
No, a lot of fun having you on. As I said, top prospects list, Pirates top prospect list. Hopefully out by the end of the week. If not the end of the week, then it'll probably be Monday. But
by Monday for sure. But
yeah,
over at Fangraphs.
I would say where can people find you and all your work?
Just at Fangraphs. I quit social media 3 years ago. So I don't do anything
Yeah,
on there
noticed.
anymore. And then I wrote a book with Kylie McDaniel of ESPN. It came out in 2020. It's called Future Value. It's just about scouting. So check that out if you think that I'm not a schmuck. But really, since the pandemic at Fangraphs, we've really shifted to a subscriber model. Ad rates have just tanked, and ad-based revenue for us was just not the same really after the pandemic for whatever reason. And so, if you like the leaderboards over at Fangraphs, we've got college stats now. We've got college leaderboards. You can go pull up your favorite school or conference and look at whose inflated stats are the most inflated in college baseball.
Noticed, I was looking at college baseball WRC pluses the other day, and I was like, oh man, this is great stuff. Oh.
Yes, I am very excited. College baseball statistics leaderboards are not really a thing on the internet. D1 baseball has some as well. You can sort through hours by conference, and we've got WRC plus, which is based on within a conference. And obviously, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're working on still. I have to manually load a bunch of dates of birth. Meg Rowley and I are manually inputting dates of birth for some of these guys into a spreadsheet. And we're going to spiff, this stuff up. But getting college stats on our site has been a goal of mine for literally several years. And so to finally have them, it feels so good. And anyway, just folks, check out Fangraphs and consider an ad-free subscription. The way the site works when there are no ads, it's so wonderful. And there are a bunch of other perks that you can change, the colors. And we do a Spotify wrapped type thing for which player pages you visited most at the end of the year and all that stuff. And those are some of the member benefits. But yeah, just go to our site.
Jim,
thanks so much for having me, you guys.
Yeah, I got to say the wrap thing at the end of last year was fun for me. I realized I look at roster resource and the board just way more than the average person apparently.
Yeah, same. Did you have any weird player pages on your most visited player pages?
You know what? I'm trying to think. Let me see if I can find
anybody from Louisville. Nick Solak definitely was on there.
Hey, Nick Solak's my dude.
This year definitely will be.
Let me see if I can find my.
I love Nick Solak too. He was on
Here
the
we
top
go.
100 when Kylie and I were.
Here we go. So I'm among the top 2% of Fangraphs users.
Amazing, thank you.
The board. I'm a buff top user of the board. I've visited many different minor league player pages, and I've drilled deep into MLB leaderboards. Let's see here. My players, though, I don't have my players saved on my phone here. I
thought O'Neill was your number one.
O'Neill Cruz was he was probably up there.
Shocking.
Let me see if I can.
Next to second, Mitch Jeb.
And then Henry Davis. And Nick
third,
Solak,
Henry Davis.
and Dalton Rushing.
Here we go. So O'Neill Cruz far and away number one. Number two is going to be a little surprising. Yasmani Grandal.
Amazing.
Was my number two. Number two.
Those
the rest of these are
breakouts.
all, yeah. So Grandal, Hayes, Gonzalez, and then Rowdy, Telez, Henry Davis, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutcheon, Paul Skeens, Termarr Johnson.
My number one was Davis Schneider.
Okay.
All right.
Because I kept waiting for him to turn into a pumpkin because I had predicted he would. And then, he was amazing out of the gate. And I was just I was constantly just checking strikeout, fucking strikeout. And then
Love it.
he did, but now he's on fire. He's a Pennsylvania kid too, or he's South Jersey. So he's basically Philly. And I just love his porn stash, and I like David Schneider. I want him to do well, part of me, and then part of me wants to be right about him, but I was constantly checking his page last year. And then Eniel De Los Santos was the other one that was weird that it was up there, and I couldn't even tell you why. His was way up there for me. And then the other ones are what you'd think. It's it was, Jackson Holiday and Justin Crawford and stuff like that. But
Nice.
You were my number one author, though. There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Close enough.
Nailed
We
it.
got a pumpkin.
Can't wait to make it at 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Thanks for having me,
Awesome.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
Eric,
coming on.
Really appreciate you coming on. Everyone, appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys later. Like, subscribe to all the fun stuff. Before we get out of here, Eric, just go ahead and drop that username, password for your Synergy site. I appreciate that. But no, really enjoyed the show. Great stuff as always. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Peace out, Scouts.
See you guys. All right, that wraps up this episode of North Shore 9. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whether you're listening on the podcast or catching us on YouTube, if you enjoyed the show, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps us grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, a quick review goes a long way in helping others find the show. Plus, be sure to tell a friend about us. There's always room for more here in the NS9 community. And for those looking to support us a little more, consider joining our Patreon, become an MVP member, and get exclusive perks while helping us continue to bring you more of the Pirates content you love. Thanks again for all your support, and let's go Bucks.